Hello everyone, and welcome to this React tutorial video uh, on React hooks with a special focus on understanding the use effect hook. This is part of the React Basics series. So let's focus and learn about React hooks and especially the use effect hook in this video. So React hooks kind of revolutionized the way that we can write components, and they offer a more direct uh, uh, API to the React concepts which we know. So, so basically, to understand what really React hooks are, so they are functions which let us hook onto React state and lifecycle features from the function components. So they were introduced in React 16 version. Yeah, to solve a wide range of problems like the reuse of stateful logic, complex components, and more such things. So today, hooks like useState, useEffect, and useContext are fundamental in creating reactive and efficient React applications. So in focus, let's look into the useEffect hook. So useEffect is a very powerful tool which kind of allows us to perform the side effects for the functional components. So we'll be thinking like, okay, what are side effects? So if so, you can think of operations, I mean, that reach outside of the component to fetch data or to set up a subscription or manually change the DOM. So essentially, replaces component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount from the class components, bundling their capabilities in a unified API. So this kind of goes into the React lifecycle processes. So kind of simplifies the whole some of the components of the lifecycle, like component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount. And with using a simple hook, use effect hook, we have made it much simpler and into a unified API. And use effect is especially useful when when you're trying to fetch data from an external API. So usually the applications that we use, like CRUD applications, which fetch data from the servers, when any change has been made on the user interface, like for example, user clicks on uh, uh, add. So for example, there's a blog application, and we click on add, and there, of course, we make a particular HTTP call. So depending on the request that we're making, we'll make a respective HTTP call. But after the call is made, we need to update the DOM. So use effect comes into play into force through its powerful way of interacting with the user interface and the components. So let's see how the use effect works, and let's create a simple application. So which kind of fetches the and displays the user data from a public API. So we'll understand use effect through that, and yeah, let's go ahead with that. So I've created a demo project here uh, for showing the use effect demo. I'll remove all of this. Okay. So first, let's start working on it. So like I mentioned, use effect, it kind of allows us to perform the side effects in the component, and it tells the React that the component needs to do something after rendering. And let's see this in action by fetching user data from an API. So in this app.js file, I've cleared up most of the data redundant code, and let's start writing some useful stuff. Import React. We'll also be using useState hook, which is used to store uh, data, and that's also a very powerful hook. So I will be explaining that in detail later, another uh, video probably. So once we've imported use state and use effect, what we can do is we'll have to fetch. So what we'll be doing is we'll be fetching some data of some user. So I've explored a particular website which is randomuser.me. So through that we can get the API through its API. We can get the JSON form, the data in the form of JSON, and which is useful for us to render it for our uh, starter projects. So let's fetch some data. It should be h1 tag. It should be random user data. Cool. And here we will be displaying all the data. So after displaying, after fetching the data, we need to be able to store that the data in somewhere. We'll use state, which will be the user data, comma set user data use state. It'll be null for now because there's no such data yet. And if you can see, it's not a string, an array, or a number. It's an object. So it's a null object right now because we do not have anything here. So now we'll use useEffect to fetch the data. So what we can do is we'll use fetch. It's inbuilt. So what we can do is fetch from this particular website. Yes, user.me/API dot then the response that we get will be changed into the JSON format, and then the data will be setting it. But for that, let's first console log the data to see if what we're getting, and let's set the user data. Cool. So what we can do now is here we are using the use effect to fetch the data. And we're also using use state hook to manage the fetch data. So inside our component, we'll define a state. We've already defined the state user data to store the user data that we fetched. So when we pass an empty array, uh, so here also we need to pass an empty array here because that's one of the characteristics of the use effect hook. So it's like a second argument. So when we pass the empty array as a second argument in use effect, this tells the React that our effect doesn't depend on any values or props or the state. So it will never need to rerun. So this is similar to the component did mount in the class components. So class components were used in the older version of React, but currently it's all functional components. So with you fetched user data, let's start to display that first. Okay. So what we can do is, so all the user data that we get, if it is true, if the user data that we got is true, I mean we got the user data. So what we can do here is let's create a div, simple name. I would first try to fetch the name of the users. data dot name first plus. Uh, don't just assume that I know what the user data is, and that's why I know. I mean, I'm magically knowing all of this, but I already know like the structure of the data, so I'm just writing it. I'll just show you how the data is structured uh, in just a moment. Don't worry about this error. It's because there's no closing tag. So what we can do is let's have an email user data dot email, and let's close this. Okay, right. Now that we have this, our application can now fetch and display the data. Let's see. Let's do the console. Okay. Okay. So, okay, we've got an array of results. Okay. So it's an object. Of course, it's an object. And we got the name here. Okay. User data not name. Okay, we got the name. Um, what we can do is I'll just remove this. All right. Um, yeah. I'll try to make this simple. Okay. Okay. We at least got the results, and results dot name. Results dot name name dot first dot. There seems to be an issue here, so I think okay. So there is a issue here because the format of the JSON here. Okay, so we got the results. Hmm, right. So why is this happening? Let's see the console. So always, that's the reason I've used console, is because it always helps us to see uh, what's wrong. So let me see, let me check. It's always good that we are debugging the code using console. So the name, so this is email, right? Okay. Um, right, data. Got it. I think this was the reason because results was something that we had to results of 0. Let's do 1. Everything is inside the first index. Cool. I think so every time we update or we reload the or refresh the page, we want to get a new random user, and all of this is happening. It's because of use effect. So use effect suggests the user data once it's mounted, and it updates the state with that data, triggering a re-render to display the username every time. So, but use effect is not just for running the effects, but it's also for cleaning them up. Suppose we set up a subscription or a timer, we want to clear that out. When the component unmounts to prevent memory leaks, we can use effect for that. And yeah, so with our user data is fetched and we're able to display it. And yeah, and we have also utilized an external API to fetch the data. So So we've learned how to perform the side effects of in our React functional components, and we've also learned a little bit of about the use effect hook. So let's see you in the next video. Thank you.